Are relations between Serbia and Turkey collapsing? While the two countries share a long and often difficult history, over the past decade they've built a surprisingly close partnership. Indeed, just a year ago, their leaders were hailing a golden age in their ties. However, cracks appear to be growing as Belgrade now accuses Ankara of pursuing imperial ambitions in the Balkans. So, how did this unlikely friendship come about? Why have differences emerged? And why does it all matter? Hello and welcome. My name is James Ker-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict and security. In international relations, partnerships can emerge between the most unexpected countries. States that once distrusted each other can suddenly find shared interests. But such friendships can be fragile. Often based on their own separate interests, they last only as long as both sides feel that the arrangement serves their goals. Once that balance shifts, even minor disagreements can trigger deep and destabilising rifts. The relationship between Serbia and Turkey is a good example. For centuries, they were divided by history, religion and culture. And yet, in recent years, they've built what seemed to be a remarkably close, if unlikely, bond of friendship. But is this all now coming apart? Serbia and Turkey are in southeast Europe. Home to 7 million people, Serbia is predominantly Slavic and Orthodox Christian. Meanwhile, Turkey, with a population of roughly 85 million, is mainly Sunni Muslim. Lying just 800 kilometres or 500 miles apart from each other, they're separated by Bulgaria. Their shared history stretches back almost 7 centuries. In the late Middle Ages, the medieval Serbian kingdom resisted the rising Ottoman Empire until, in 1389, Serbian forces were defeated at the Battle of Kosovo Polje. From there, the Ottomans steadily took control of Serbia, as well as much of the rest of the Balkan Peninsula. While the Ottoman Empire saw Serbia as just one of its many provinces across Europe, the Middle East and North Africa, for the Serbs, Ottoman rule became a defining element of their history. While imperial control may have brought legal order, urban development and trade, it also meant heavy taxation, religious restrictions and centuries of subjugation punctuated by periods of harsh repression. However, all this changed in the early 19th century. After several uprisings, Serbia gained autonomy in 1830. Then, almost 50 years later, in 1878, it secured full independence. From there, it continued to challenge Ottoman rule across the Balkans. For example, in 1912, it joined with Bulgaria, Greece and Montenegro in the First Balkan War to seize most of the last remaining Ottoman territories in Europe. But it was the end of the First World War just a few years later that opened a new era for both peoples. As Serbia joined what would eventually become the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, leading to the creation of the Republic of Turkey. Despite their difficult history, during the years that followed, Turkey and Serb-dominated Yugoslavia in fact formed a good relationship. This was seemingly cemented in 1934 when they joined the Balkan Pact, a regional defence treaty. However, the agreement proved to be an ineffective alliance. When the Second World War broke out, Yugoslavia was occupied by the Axis powers while Turkey opted for neutrality. Then, following World War II, the countries went in very different directions. While Yugoslavia fell under communist rule and later became a leading force within the non-aligned movement, Turkey instead joined NATO in 1952, thereby anchoring itself firmly within the West. But while Turkey and Greece in fact signed a defence agreement with Yugoslavia in 1953, this soon broke down over growing Greek-Turkish tensions. As a result, throughout the Cold War, relations between the two countries were polite but distant. While trade and diplomacy continued, there was little real engagement. In the end, the critical turning point came with the collapse of Yugoslavia at the start of the 1990s. As Bosnia descended into war and Kosovo rose up against Serb rule, Turkey sided with the Bosnian Muslims and the Muslim Kosovo Albanians, condemning Serb actions and supporting NATO's bombing of Serbia in 1999. Then, following the emergence of a new religiously oriented administration at the turn of the millennium, Turkey began to increasingly see itself as a patron for Muslims in the Balkans, not only in Bosnia and Kosovo, but also in Albania, North Macedonia, and southern Serbia. This, in turn, led to a revival of Serb memories of Ottoman regional domination and once again cast Turkey as an adversary. This perception further deepened in February 2008 when Kosovo declared independence. Having become one of the first countries to recognise it, a move that infuriated Belgrade, matters were made worse over the following years as Turkey actively lobbied for other Muslim-majority states to follow its lead. But despite these tensions, relations began to thaw in the 2010s. This was driven by a couple of distinct factors. For a start, Turkey adopted a new foreign policy aimed at reducing regional disputes. While Ankara sought to extend its influence over Muslim communities in the Balkans, it also recognised the importance of building stronger ties with Serbia. This was particularly evident in the case of Bosnia, where tensions between the Bosniaks, as the Bosnian Muslims are now known, and the Bosnian Serbs was paralysing the country. In that case, Ankara helped to broker talks between Belgrade and Sarajevo. But in addition to building its regional political and diplomatic profile, Turkey was also keen to expand its economic reach. In particular, Serbia, sitting at the centre of the Balkans, offered vital energy and transport routes linking Asia via Turkey to Europe. As investment, aid and trade flowed into Serbia and Turkish companies became major players in the country's construction and textile sectors, Belgrade welcomed this as a way to reduce its over-reliance on other actors, such as the European Union or Russia. As a result of all this, by the early 2020s, Serbia and Turkey appeared to have turned a corner. As well as the close economic links, the political relationship had also been transformed as the two presidents, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan and Aleksandar Vučić, developed a personal rapport. As Turkish media described the relationship as a strategic partnership, Serbian officials hailed what they called the best period in bilateral ties. All this was on full display in October 2024 when Erdoğan paid a high-profile visit to Belgrade. Having been given an especially warm welcome, Vučić praised him as a true friend of Serbia. In addition to signing several new economic deals, they also talked about joint drone production, building on Turkey's growing strength in this field and Serbia's long-standing experience as an arms manufacturer. Meanwhile, even over Kosovo, they seemed to manage their differences. Although Turkey continued to support Kosovo's independence, it avoided pressing the issue too publicly. At the same time, Belgrade chose not to criticise Ankara's stance. Ultimately, it was a careful balancing act, but one that seemed to work until it didn't. I hope you're finding this helpful. If so, please do give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Many thanks. And now, back to the video. The current crisis erupted in October 2025 when reports emerged that Turkey had supplied Kosovo with new drones as part of efforts to strengthen its security forces. Coming after another drone spat just a few years earlier, the news was greeted with fury in Belgrade. As the Serbian government accused Turkey of violating international law by arming a separatist province, Vučić vented his personal anger at the news. In a statement on his website, he said it was now completely clear that Turkey doesn't want stability in the Western Balkans and that it dreams of reviving the Ottoman Empire. By any account, this was an extraordinarily strong statement. And yet, despite the very public nature of the outburst, within a day or so, the Serbian president had distanced himself from his previous comments. Praising his Turkish counterpart as a strong leader, he now called for the closest possible relations between the two countries. So, just what exactly is going on? In one sense, the incident appears to have a very straightforward explanation. It's been suggested that the outburst was in fact an attempt by Vučić to deflect from his domestic political problems caused by months of widespread protests. However, realising that his comments could jeopardise an important political and economic relationship, he quickly backtracked. But while all this may be true, the statement nevertheless appears to be a sign of a more profound issue. Vučić's accusations of neo-Ottomanism were not offhand remarks. They reflect a more profound resentment. Kosovo isn't just another foreign policy issue. For Serbia, it's central to its external relations. Equally, for Turkey, supporting Kosovo aligns with its broader identity as a defender of Muslim communities across the Western Balkans. Given that these two positions are fundamentally at odds, this hints at deeper problems. So, what happens now? While Erdoğan and Vučić are both realists, and once emotions cool, cooperation may well resume as if nothing had happened, Vučić's comments have nevertheless exposed an important fault line in the Serbian-Turkish relationship. Belgrade sees Ankara as a potential regional challenger, if not a threat. To this extent, the question is whether, despite efforts to play down the comments, we're now entering a period of tension. For many in Belgrade, suspicions will inevitably linger. However, following this spat, the key test will be whether Turkey continues arming and supporting Kosovo and its other allies in the region. If so, it'll only reinforce Serbian concerns about Turkey's ultimate agenda, especially if Bosniak and Kosovo Albanian leaders talk up Ankara's role as their ally. If all this happens, it could well have a broader impact. If Ankara and Belgrade drift further apart and their strategic partnership becomes a strategic rivalry, this could well undermine the Balkans at a time when there are growing fears about regional stability. And it's for all these reasons that the outburst from Vučić is so significant. Having built what appeared to be a positive, if unlikely, relationship, it's a timely reminder that a fundamental tension still exists between Serbia and Turkey, and that the partnership they've created is far more fragile than it seems. I hope you found that interesting. If so, here are some more videos that you might find helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.